In the ruins of a forgotten city, beneath layers of dust and centuries of silence, a pillar of dark stone was unearthed. It rose from the earth not like a fragment of ruin, but like a voice returned from the grave. They call it the Black Obelisk, not Egyptian, though it bears the name of obelisk, not dedicated to Ra or carved to pierce the heavens of the Nile. No, it is Assyrian, a monument of kings and conquest, of power and humiliation, of memory etched into stone. Upon its side, scenes unfold like an ancient film strip. Kings kneeling, treasures borne on weary backs, animals from distant lands brought as tribute. And in one unforgettable image, a figure bows low, his face to the earth before the Assyrian throne. Some believe it is Jehu, king of Israel, the earliest depiction of an Israelite in all of recorded art. Yet the Black Obelisk is more than history. It is myth, it is symbol, it is psychology carved in limestone, a story not just of Assyria, but of us, for power, shadow, and the longing for eternity still haunt us. And the obelisk whispers a question across the gulf of 3,000 years. When your own empire crumbles to dust, what story will remain carved into the stone of your soul? The year is 858 before the Common Era. The Assyrian throne is occupied by a man who would shape the course of the Near East, Shalmaneser III. His armies march like storms, iron chariots grinding across the earth, their advance as inevitable as floodwaters. Cities fall before him, tribes surrender, kings are crushed or bow in submission. His capital, Kalhu, today Nimrud in northern Iraq, becomes a stage for his dominion. Palaces of stone, gates of bronze, reliefs carved with winged genies and colossal guardians, with the body of a bull, the wings of an eagle, and the face of a man. Among these, a monument unlike the rest is raised, the Black Obelisk. 6.5 feet tall, carved of black limestone, its four sides divided into registers. Rows of images stacked one above another. Each row tells a story, 5 panels of tribute scenes, 5 acts of submission. From Suhu on the banks of the Euphrates come camels, ships of the desert, their shadows stretching across sand like waves of endurance. From Musri, perhaps Egypt or Arabia, come elephants, apes, and exotic animals. Wonders of nature chained and offered as symbols of dominion over distant lands. From the land of Patin in northern Syria, precious metals, vessels, and textiles flow. From Babylonian lands, vassals bring the treasures of their rivers. And then from Israel comes the kneeling figure, Jehu, son of Omri, king of the house of Israel, or perhaps his envoy. He bows low before Shalmaneser, arms outstretched, face pressed to the ground. Behind him, attendants carry gold, silver, vessels, and spears. It is the only depiction of an Israelite king outside the Bible. To his subjects, Shalmaneser was no man. He was the embodiment of empire, order, divinity. His obelisk declared, for all eternity, the kings of the earth bow to Assyria. The Black Obelisk is, on its surface, propaganda, a stone document of domination, a theater of humiliation. But to tell its story as mere politics is to see only the skin of the myth. For beneath its surface, something older and deeper speaks. It is the story of power, of submission, of the eternal hunger to be remembered. But what does it mean, this dark pillar of stone? The obelisk itself is a symbol. To raise stone upright is to declare permanence. It is to say, here I stand, here I remain, here my name endures. Egypt's obelisks were carved in granite, tipped with gold to catch the sun, symbols of Ra piercing the heavens. Rome raised arches to commemorate victory, parading their triumphs for generations yet unborn. The Maya carved stelae, inscribing kings and gods in glyphs that spoke across centuries. Stone endures when flesh fails, and so the human dream is carved into rock. The Black Obelisk carries not only the image of Assyria's power, but the archetype of kingship itself. The camel is not just an animal, but endurance made flesh. The elephant is not just a beast, but strength beyond reckoning. The ape is not just curiosity, but the wild made captive. Gold and silver are not just wealth, but the lure of eternity, gleaming like the sun, incorruptible, undying. And the kneeling king? He is more than Jehu, more than Israel. He is the archetype of submission. He is the conquered shadow, the ego laid low before a greater power. He is the mortal who bows before the god, the subject before the ruler, the disciple before the mystery. The symbol is universal. Across cultures, we see the same image. Pharaoh smiting enemies beneath his feet. Persian kings standing tall as lions fall at their spears. Medieval vassals kneeling before their lords. Even in our age, the handshake of diplomacy, a softened echo of the same ritual of submission. Symbols are not accidents. They are the language of the unconscious. They carry truths older than empires. The Black Obelisk is not only Assyria's monument, it is humanity's. For in it we see our own need to dominate, our own need to endure, our own need to be remembered when the dust has swallowed us. But stone alone does not endure. What endures is the image within us. The Black Obelisk survives not merely because it was carved, but because it carved its way into the human mind. Carl Jung taught us that myths are not only stories from the past, they are mirrors of the psyche, archetypes, primordial patterns of imagination that live in the collective unconscious. The Black Obelisk is not simply history, it is archetype in stone. The king who raises the obelisk, he is the father, the ruler, the patriarch. He represents order, structure, the imposition of will upon chaos. Yet behind his throne lurks the shadow, violence, domination, cruelty. The tribute bearers. They are not only vassals of foreign lands, but parts of ourselves. Each kneeling figure is an aspect of the psyche brought before the throne of the ego. The camel is our endurance. The elephant is our strength. The ape is our instinct, our primal curiosity. The gold is our longing for permanence. And Jehu, the kneeling king. He is the ego laid low before the greater self. He is us, surrendering not merely to empire, but to the vast powers beyond comprehension, to history, to time, to death, to God. In Jungian psychology, this is the moment of confrontation with the self. The ego kneels before the larger totality of the psyche. It is humbling, it is terrifying, yet it is necessary. The obelisk stages a drama older than Assyria. It is the eternal struggle between the ego and the self, between pride and surrender, between shadow and light. Think of the shadow. Every empire casts one. Assyria conquered, enslaved, destroyed, but it was also haunted by its own violence. The Lamassu guardians carved at its gates were not only protectors, but reminders of the monstrous forces within their imagination. The shadow, Jung said, is everything we refuse to see in ourselves. To deny it is to project it onto others. To confront it is to be transformed. The Black Obelisk shows the shadow in motion, the proud king glorified, the conquered king humiliated. Yet within both lies the same truth. One day the ruler will bow. One day the conqueror will be conquered. Even Shalmaneser's empire crumbled into dust. Even his obelisk, buried for millennia, returned to light only to remind us of the cycle. The archetype of the obelisk is not merely power. It is the confrontation with mortality, the desire to endure against the certainty of oblivion. And so, the stone becomes a mirror. When you gaze upon the Black Obelisk, you do not only see Assyria, you see yourself. You see the part of you that craves control, the part of you that fears submission, the part of you that longs for eternity yet trembles before death. What does the Black Obelisk say to us now? We live in an age of glass towers, steel obelisks, monuments of commerce and ambition. Our rulers no longer carve their conquests into stone, but into data, into the invisible walls of digital empires. Yet the hunger is the same: to endure, to dominate, to be remembered. We still build obelisks. We call them skyscrapers. We call them rockets. We call them brands. We call them legacies. And we still kneel. Not always with our bodies, but with our attention, our labor, our devotion. We bow before the empire of technology, before the empire of money, before the empire of ideology. The Black Obelisk is alive. But the question is, must we repeat its cycle? Every empire has fallen. Assyria, Babylon, Rome. Every obelisk is one day toppled. Every king, no matter how proud, eventually kneels before death. The spiritual path begins when we see this truth. The obelisk becomes not a monument of conquest, but a doorway, a threshold, a reminder that true endurance is not in stone or empire, but in awakening. Awakening means seeing through the illusion of permanence. Awakening means kneeling willingly, not in humiliation, but in surrender to what is greater, the infinite, the divine, the eternal self. The Black Obelisk whispers, "Do not be fooled by power. Do not cling to stone. What endures is the soul." Look around. Humanity stands again at the threshold. Our empires of technology, of politics, of war grow restless. Climate trembles. Nations clash. The earth groans beneath the weight of our obelisks of greed. But within each crisis lies a seed of transformation. The Black Obelisk is a mirror, and it asks, will you remain a vassal, bowing only in fear? Or will you surrender consciously, awakening to the greater self within you? To kneel is not to be destroyed. To kneel truly is to be free. For the ego bows, but the soul rises. The Assyrians built their obelisk to show submission before empire. But today the obelisk stands as a spiritual reminder. Submit not to the tyrant, but to the divine. Bow not in humiliation, but in reverence. Kneel not to empire, but to eternity. This is awakening. The Black Obelisk has stood in silence for nearly 3,000 years. It has seen empires rise and fall. It has outlived the kings who raised it and the kings who bowed before it. Its surface tells a story of conquest, but its silence tells a deeper story, that nothing endures but the soul's journey. Stone crumbles, thrones fall, names vanish, but the image remains, the myth remains, the archetype remains. And so the Black Obelisk does not belong to Assyria alone. It belongs to all of us. It asks us, what is your obelisk? What story will you carve into eternity? Will it be conquest and pride, soon forgotten? Or will it be awakening, surrender, and the light that does not fade? The obelisk is not only a monument, it is a doorway, a passage into memory, myth, and the eternal. And when the dust covers our cities, when our towers fall, when our empires are forgotten, perhaps some fragment will remain. A whisper, a shadow carved in stone, and in that shadow, perhaps a question will echo still. When your empire has turned to dust, what story will your soul have carved into the eternal obelisk of being? If this journey through the Black Obelisk has stirred something in you, a question, a shadow, a spark of awakening, then let it not end here. The myths are not finished, the archetypes still live, and together we are carving the next obelisk, not of stone, but of story, of spirit, of vision. Join us. Walk further into the labyrinth of myth and psyche. Subscribe to Epiphane Arcadia, and let us journey deeper, where history becomes mirror and story becomes soul. And now, I leave you with the question that only you can answer. What will you carve into eternity?